Okay, so we're going to get started with at least our introduction. So this Nearpod session was created in partnership with New Teacher Center, and both Nicole and I work for New Teacher Center. Previously, I was a TK teacher in San Francisco for a couple of years, and now I'm an instructional coach in Oakland, working primarily with preschool teachers.
My name's Nicole Nelson, and I work in Oakland as well, supporting the administrators and teachers there in early learning as an instructional coach. So we're excited for you guys to be here today and to try out Nearpod with us, which is somewhat new for us. And we had a bit of technical difficulties. We were waiting for the sound cable from the main stage to come here to make sure we'd have sound. So we got it. So we're hoping it'll work.
Yeah, so bear with us. Okay, so first we're going to start with what Nearpod calls a sprinkle, so a way for us to build community and break the ice. So you have sticky notes in front of wherever it is you're sitting, and on one sticky note, think of a child that you currently know or work with that needs to develop some resiliency. So think of this child, bring this child to mind, and write down some notes as to why you think what is showing you that this child needs to develop that resiliency. And on the other sticky note, think of a child that already has those resiliency skills, and how do you know? Wow, this room came back very quickly. Thank you. So we want to keep these children in mind as we move through our session today. And now we're going to get a little bit of our sillies out. So if you could stand up. And I know it might be a little tough in this room, but just stand up and pick up your favorite air instrument. Oh, I see some microphones. Could be a guitar, some drums. Okay, and we are going to do our best job of playing our instrument to this next song. Let's see where it is. Thank you. You may take a seat. And so this activity, and we really just want to show that we kept that space between our body and the instrument. There was some space there, it wasn't touching us. And we want to hang on to that space between this entire session because it represents the space between a trigger and our reaction. So we need to really take that moment to compose ourselves before we react to what might be happening in that classroom or even one of the children that you wrote on those sticky notes.
So now we're going to go through the outcomes of what we want to achieve in the next hour. And I might stop myself because we've been told not to cross the screen because we're filming today. So just if you see that movement, that's what that's about. In the next hour, what we're going to do is really think about building resilience in the classrooms. And we'll start by thinking of a common definition by looking at some bouncy balls. And then we'll watch a video of the hand model of the brain and how we react under stress and how that can affect us and the students. And then we'll look at a lunchtime scenario and think about what we're seeing in the actual classrooms and how that shows up. And we have 3 concrete strategies that we have for you to leave with today that you can try out. And then after that, not listed here, is thinking about how the classroom environment can support students to develop and build resiliency. Okay? So let's start with our video.
One night of magic rush, the start a simple touch. One night to push and scream, and then ring. 10 days of perfect tunes, the colors red and blue. We had was made. We were in love.
I think you guys get the idea. I'm going to just move on. Yes, it'll let me. I think you guys get the idea. How might these bouncy balls relate to resilience? What do you all think? And I'll take a quiet hand. Thank you. Yes. They can bounce off of something and keep going, right? They don't just remain flat. Anything else to add about that? Yes. Yeah, the environment can affect how they bounce. Definitely. That's a great connection. Yes. Yeah, so power in numbers, being a force in the larger group. Yes. That's great. Whatever the yeah, that's great. Whatever the obstacle is, they bounce no matter what, and they keep going. Whatever they're faced with, they find a way to bounce again. Oh, I got to move over here. All right, I'm going to stand close to you guys today. Okay, yes. So basically, resilience is the ability to overcome those obstacles. And there's also this idea that it's the ability to bounce back and also bounce forward, right? We can learn from our mistakes. So let's take a look, and this would be done on your device. We have 3 scenarios, so you can see them closely on your device if you wish. And think about which one demonstrates resilience the best. Just go ahead and read those through quickly. Yeah, I think I will because it's a little odd. Yeah. So scenario 1, the girl hits a rock on her bike and says, "Ow, I just hit a rock. This time I will avoid the rock and be more careful." Scenario 2, "Ow, I just hit a rock. Ow, I hit another rock." Scenario 3, "Ow, I just hit a rock. I can't ride bikes, I give up." So take a moment and you can mark on your devices which one you think demonstrates resilience. So go ahead and take a moment to do that if you're on your device. Otherwise, just think about it in your head. Hold on to it. Okay, and let's see how we did. It's scenario 1. This child shows resilience because she, 1, is bouncing back. She's saying, okay, next time, shows that this obstacle is not going to stop her. She's going to try again. She's not giving up like, I can't do it anymore, which we've seen plenty of students doing. And she's also bouncing forward because she's saying, I'll avoid rocks and be more careful. So she's learning from the experience, right? And then moving forward on that. So that's another thing we'd like to push back, emphasize is that resilient people are really empowered by setbacks because they can learn from them and grow stronger, right? All right, and now Esmeralda is going to lead us through some more pieces.
Okay, so in this section, in your device, if you could type an answer to the following question. What does it look like when a student has not yet developed resilience? So any resilience skills, and they encounter obstacles or setbacks. And as you type, we will be seeing your answers come up here once you submit them. They give up, they shut down, there's anger, frustration, tantrums, withdrawal, crying, saying things are hard. So continue to give up. Don't attempt what it is they were doing anymore. Have a meltdown. Biting. Blaming someone else. Maybe their emotions pop up. Worrying, sadness, whining. A lot of what you mentioned is here. So throwing a tantrum, becoming extremely emotional, not willing to try again, or even turning on you as a teacher and saying, I don't like you. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And that is kind of where we're going. We can't support students to be resilient if we don't develop that in ourselves as educators. Yeah. And so we're going to start by watching just a model of the brain. And this is a very famous video, so you may have watched it already. And let's hope it works.
So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your palm, put your fingers over the top, this is a very useful model of the brain. And when we can actually see in front of us what's going on in the brain, then we can change what the brain does. So let me walk you through very basically what happens in this brain and the structures in it. And it goes like this. The spinal cord comes up, representing the wrist, and then you have coming up into the skull, the brain stem and the limbic area, which work together to help regulate arousal and your emotions and the way you have a fight, flight, freeze response. These are below the cortex, the limbic and brainstem areas, and the cortex is this higher part of the brain that allows us to perceive the outside world, to think and reason. And this frontmost part of the brain, right behind your forehead, so the person's oriented like this, is actually the part that regulates the subcortical, limbic, and brainstem areas. This regulation is very important because sometimes we can have all sorts of things happen in our life. We're tired, we're exhausted, someone pushes a particular emotional button, and we can flip our lids. So rather than being tuned in and connected and balanced and flexible, we can lose all of that flexibility, even lose moral reasoning, and act in ways that are terrifying to others. So now what happens is, if this thing is firing enough, this downstairs brain is firing enough, here's what happens. It fires, 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 fires. And pretty soon, it's going to make it so the ability of my upstairs brain to maintain the coordination and balance of the downstairs brain gets a little on the edge. And think of the experience of someone hanging off a cliff, right? You're hanging on, you're still hanging on, you're still hanging on, you're still hanging on, and you can feel yourself shaking. But what happens when you let go?
Yeah, eventually you're...
When you let go, you are going. It's the same way with the upstairs brain. It holds on, it holds on, it holds on, it holds on. There's a bunch of parents smiling, so you know what's about to happen. This is now let's talk about our brains. It's holding on, it's holding on, it's holding on, and suddenly the firing from the downstairs brain is too much. The grip is lost. And watch what happens. This is why it happens so quickly, you guys. This now no longer is coordinating and balancing it. That's the first thing. So now this is now erupts out because it's no longer contained, which turns this way, way off. So within 2-3 seconds, you go from kind of being a reasonable human being to flipping your lid.
And this applies both to the children and us as educators. So here on your device, you'll be able to slide through, but I'll talk through the slides as well. And so consistent behaviors reinforce those brain pathways. And here the example is like a river carving through rock. And it's reinforcing both those resilient responses and those non-resilient responses. So the more we use that upstairs brain, the more we develop resilience. And so some examples of how we're using that upstairs brain is when we are managing our own emotions, or supporting students to manage theirs, when we support them in problem solving, seeing things from another person's perspective, and when they are learning from that setback. And if we repeatedly use that downstairs brain, we are hindering resilience. And so this is the fight, flight, or freeze response. And so this is when a child might begin hitting someone or biting or the flying. They might run away from the classroom or the situation or just freeze and not say anything and not move. Oh, yeah. That's a scary one. And just to be aware that children who have dealt with trauma survive by living in that downstairs brain. So developing resilience for them is especially important, but it might look a bit different. And here is where I would say it's really important to have those positive teacher-child interactions and develop that relationship, so they can begin to build that secure attachment with them, and you can support them through building their resiliency. So now we're going to bring it back to that space between, so the space between our trigger and the reaction. And if you feel comfortable, if you could close your eyes while I read a scenario. It's a rainy Friday afternoon, and it's been one thing after the next. The morning began with an upset parent, which made you start class late. This threw the kids completely off. Later, Joey spit on Teresa, and when you tried to talk to him, he turned around and spit on you. The other students saw Joey do this. They stopped and stared to see what you do next. So sit with your feeling for a moment and turn to a partner and discuss how you're feeling, how might you respond, and what would you do first. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And we're hoping that the strategies that we share helps us keep that cool so we can be calm when we're responding to them. And just a reaction that could have been, if we don't take that time and we react immediately, could be to send Joey to the office, send him to the principal. And we know that that would not benefit Joey or anybody in the classroom. But yet you mentioned a lot of these other ideas. And so now, could I get someone, I don't know if you're able to read it, but maybe from your device, if you could read this quote for us. And that's just making me think about everything all of you have shared. That is that you need to take that space or time for yourself, even if it's just 10 seconds, so that you can respond appropriately. Oh, yes.
And as far as the upset.
And like we said before, supporting that resilience in our students starts with developing it in ourselves. So we're going to watch a quick video, and this is from something that happened earlier this year, and you may be familiar with it. It happened in April. It was a Southwest flight 1380 that exploded mid-air. And so a passenger was partially sucked out of the plane. And here we're really just listening to how the pilot handled it and whether the pilot showed resiliency.
Okay, could you have the medical meet us there on the runway as well? We've got injured passengers.
Injured passengers, okay, and is your airplane physically on fire?
No, it's not on fire, but part of it's missing. They said there was a hole and someone went out.
I'm sorry, you said there was a hole and somebody went out? Southwest 1380, it doesn't matter. We'll work it out there. So the airport's just off to your right. Report it in sight, please.
In sight. Southwest 1380, airport's in sight.
So what did you notice about the pilot? Very calm. Yeah. And what about the air traffic controller? Yeah. So he started to flip his lid, and then she was so calm, then she brought him right back down. And we just answer these questions. And if they hadn't shown that resiliency, we don't know what would have happened to that plane and whether she would have been able to land that plane safely. So they both needed to use those skills to remain calm, use their upstairs brain to be able to think, and save the rest of the people on that plane. So now, here's yes. Yeah. And find some teachers that can support you as well. So like it was mentioned here, like another teacher you can go to vent, or if you have a coach that you can do that with. A lot of my teachers, that's at least our first 10 minutes of our coaching session is like, how are you doing? And they let everything out, and then we can really focus on instruction after that. But yeah, it is important to have that space for yourself as well. And so now we're going to go through 3 quick strategies, and this one you may be familiar with is called STAR. And it is stop, take a deep breath, and relax. So let's just try it right now. So take a deep breath. Notice if your shoulders are up to your ears, and just bring them back down. And this is a strategy we can use when we are being triggered by a behavior, a situation. And as you saw, it's a very quick breath, and now we can move forward with the appropriate response. We're going to watch a quick video, and in this video, try STAR. You might need to try it multiple times in this video.
Everything is under control. No. Monsters. What are you doing with this?
So does STAR help out? Yeah, no? That classroom might be a little too out of control. But if you take a deep breath, now you know, okay, where do I go first? Where are the safety concerns? And that's where I'm going. So our second strategy is to identify our own personal triggers. And here, on your device, if you could answer this question, or just complete the sentence. I am triggered when a child or children ... So hitting, hurting, lying, bullying, screaming, being mean, talking back, defiance, yelling. Being disrespectful, throwing things, becoming destructive. Ooh, cutting another student's hair. Throwing a tantrum, ignoring a redirection, hurting themselves or others. Shouting and saying no, that is one of my triggers as well. And blaming someone else. I was just in a classroom where I was playing in the dramatic play area, and this child had a hair dryer. So he just got a ton of spit in my hair because he was blowing the air. And I was like, it's fine, I'm going home after this. And then he said, okay, I'm gonna cut your hair now. And I was like, let me see your scissors. And he just had his fingers. And I was like, okay, you can cut my hair. So when something triggers us, something like everything that was mentioned earlier, it senses from that upstairs brain to our downstairs brain. And it happens just in these 4 steps. So first, it activates an old message that we have internalized from a previous experience. And it can even go as far back as our own childhood and things that we experienced at school. And then that old message generates a false message. So we are seeing whatever behavior is happening from our own adult eyes, but also from that experience we had long ago. And that false message then creates an uncomfortable physical sensation. So our heart might begin to beat a little bit faster. And then that leads to an automatic reaction. So we don't have the time to give ourselves that space, but we react immediately. And so a lot of times when we're reacting automatically is because we have been triggered. And so now, I'm going to read this, and if you could highlight each stage of this one might be a little bit hard because it's hard to see the image at the top. But this is the situation, and we can see all 4 steps in action. So Josie is unkind to another child in her class. The teacher who was picked on in school subconsciously remembers her own childhood, and her heart rate increases. The teacher thinks Josie is a bully and will never learn to be nice. So this causes the teacher to flip her lid, and the teacher yells, "This behavior is not acceptable. It is mean and bossy. Go to the office." So instead of highlighting it, what is the old message here? That she was picked on, yeah. And what is the false message? That, yeah, Josie is a bully and will never learn to be nice. And what was that uncomfortable physical sensation? Yeah, her heart rate. And the automatic reaction? Yell and go to the office. Yeah. So there it is. And what triggers do is prevent us from recognizing what is really at the root of that behavior, because we're seeing it from the lens of our own experiences and our own adult lenses. And when that is happening, we're not meeting the needs of the students because we're just living in our own headspace and what is happening to our bodies and to ourselves. So just to end this section, it's really important to identify our triggers so that when we realize we're being triggered, we either do the STAR strategy or count 1 to 10, whatever we need to do to appropriately respond to what the child is needing. And our third strategy is to reframe what is happening. So that helps us see the situation also differently and not from our own adult perspective. So this student is, and then we name some positive strains of that child. And he or she might be behaving this way because. So here's where we're trying to get at the root of the behavior. And I'm not sure you'll be able to see the others. If you have your device, are you able to scroll through and read them? So here you can see the trigger thoughts and the reframing. Is it helpful for me to read them or for you to read on your own? For me to read them? Okay, so the trigger thought, let's see. Sarah has been a problem all day today. She just whacked someone in the head for the 4th time in a row, even after I spoke with her calmly multiple times. She's driving me crazy. This behavior is unacceptable. So these are the teacher's thoughts. And here's the reframing. Sarah was super helpful this morning during morning meeting. She could be behaving this way now because she doesn't understand what she is being asked to do. And with that reframing, you know how to support her. Here's another one. So Jorge snatches a marker from Sion, and Sion begins to cry. So the teacher's thinking, Jorge's being mean on purpose. He's trying to make Sion cry. I'm so sick of this behavior. And the reframing, Jorge is good friends with Sion. He might be behaving this way because he's so excited to finish his drawing. He didn't think to ask Sion before taking the marker. And one last one. So Anna and Sean cross their arms and roll their eyes when the teacher talks to them. So here's the trigger thought. How dare they look at me like that after everything I've done to help them out? I can't stand it any longer. They won't get away with this behavior. And the reframing. Anna and Sean are both good listeners. They might be behaving this way because something's upset them and I don't know about it yet. So now you're going to try it on your own. You should be able to click the scenario at the top and then you'll be able to type or write directly on top of this image. But I'll read the scenario. Dwayne refuses to join the class during their painting activity. He won't put on a smock, and he won't touch the paints. Instead, he sits alone in the corner of the room, playing with a small piece of paper. Dwayne's teacher thinks he doesn't want to do anything with the class. He just does whatever he wants and never follows directions. So how would you reframe this scenario? So that one says, Dwayne is a smart student. He doesn't like art or getting dirty. Yeah. And sometimes it's a sensory thing. Yeah. So now, if we could just share some of our thoughts about how reframing can help us stay in that upstairs brain, and how could it model resilience for the students. And if you could take about 30 seconds to just kind of read through what some of the answers were from the room, and you should be able to look at it on your device as well if this is hard to read up here. But from what I saw, a lot of it was building empathy, compassion, and trying to really understand what is going on. So just to review, building resilience in students starts with building resilience in ourselves as educators. And here's some strategies that we can use. So the stop, take a deep breath and relax. Identify our own personal triggers and reframe, which might be especially difficult when there's a really challenging situation, but it's a useful one as well. Thank you.
So now we're going to look at the classroom environment and how we can set that up and share with one another, because you all come with a lot of expertise, and we want to give you a chance to share that with each other in the room as well. So did you know your environment can also promote resilience? I think you did know that. And we're going to explore some photos to consider how that can happen. And so at your tables, there's a handout that says, give one, get one. And basically, it's to record ideas for how to set up the environment to promote that resilience, right? So each little box is for an idea. So this is just a little handy sheet for you to record ideas as you wish. If you run out, because there's only 12 spaces, you could write on the back. So you should have a give one, get one sheet. And as we're looking at the photos, you can go ahead and record any new ideas you might have, or ones that you think you want to try out that you might have known of already that you hadn't thought of doing recently. And we're going to get started by thinking about what do we notice. So we'll do this first photo together. So in the photo, this is a poster that a teacher has set up, and it says, be safe at the top. And then down below it has photos of students, and it says, we can line up. And there's two different lines where the students are lined up. Then it has, we ride along the bike paths, and the children are riding their bikes. And then we build towers safely, right? How would this help promote resilience? It's a visual reminder. It's often, we're teaching them how, they need to learn to be safe, so we're teaching them what the expectations are, and they're concrete photos from the classroom. Yeah, and it's personal because it's to the students. They've done it once, they can do it again. It also builds that ownership, right? Because they see themselves in those pictures. It's not the pre-printed lakeshore action. Anything else about this one? Ooh. Right. Yeah. Yes, it's positively framed, setting up, like, rather than no, don't do this, like, we can do this, we can do that, right? It's empowering those students. Yes, in the back. and making it an active poster in a way. It's not way up high so that we can just show adults what we know, right? It's like down here and it's like, come on, remember, this is what we do for this time. Yeah, yes. Yes, and the child can help another child out. Like we want to all support one another. Excellent. Okay, so you guys get the idea. So in this next session on your devices, what you can do is scroll down to the different photos and discuss with a partner if you wish, or do this on your own. And again, the buy one, get one free. I don't know where that came from. Give one, get one is just for you to record any new ideas you might have, or just reminders of what you want to try in your classroom. Once you're completed scrolling through these photos, you can go ahead and just share with someone else what's worked for you. This is really a time to network and get ideas from each other. Are there any questions I can answer about this process? Okay, go ahead and take a look at the photos. Yeah, I'll slowly do it for people who don't. Yeah, definitely. Okay, let me set the timer. Just how much time? Oh, I have my phone in here. And model it, right, and then then they could go on their own or take another student to help them, right? And it could be in like a quiet corner or wherever else. Oh, so like how it has like naming your own emotion, right? It's like, oh, this is what because first you have to be able to recognize you have the emotion, and then I'll get to this feeling because that's where I want to go, right? Yeah, they could even have their own little, then they could have their faces on there too, which would be really cool. I mean, that would be depending, but let's see. This one was interesting. I hadn't seen those pipe cleaners used for the bubbles, and that was just a cute idea, because they could make their own easily. But that's really just the breathing, another way to just remind them to breathe, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. Isn't that funny?
So we'll have access to all these pictures that we'll be able to go back.
Yes, yeah. They're all there in the PDF.
Will it come up with the different answers that people came up with too?
No, it won't have that part. Yeah. This is interesting because I usually see the one of how do I feel, but it's like, oh, what would make me feel better, right? It's like,
looking at making one, you know, because I didn't, it was like, oh, you know, that's kind of expensive, let me see. But after I looked at all the stuff I would need to buy, it was like, you know what, plus all the labor, it's more expensive for me to make it. I'll just buy theirs.
Right. And time consuming. Your time is valuable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and the kids, like I said, they love it. It's good quality.
Yeah. Sometimes the last long titles.
For kids, we've been trying to say first grade. Oh, reading. I've been watching first grade quite like forever. It's about 10 years. And then constantly working.
Yeah. I taught in Taiwan for 4 years, and they used to give me an upper grade and a lower grade. So I taught first, third, second, fourth, and then I did another round of both. And when I came here, I got standard, TK, Portland Combo 4, and now I'm TK.
I've done everything TK.
Do it together, even though I know I went in it.
I tease people at my campus that I'm playing tennis that, you know, I keep going from one to the other.
Yeah, we did class job. So what is this one about?
We start TK 6-7 years ago.
Responsibilities.
Ever since it became a state mandate. Oh, okay. 6 or 7.
About one more minute. One more minute.
Coming up with pictures or showing your pictures of, you know, what is being kind? What are things you can do to be kind? And like a picture of somebody giving somebody something or sharing something or helping somebody.
No pressure.
You know, then it'll help them.
From the teacher. But
Could you bring the chime, please? Thanks. All right, if we could come together as a whole group again. And let's share out some things we noticed. Perhaps we saw something in the photos, or it sparked our thoughts about something else that we want to try, or maybe something that we heard from someone else that we'd like to share out for the good of the group. What types of things can we put in place in the physical environment and the rituals and routines to really help these students build resilience? That's brilliant. You're capturing them doing what the desired behavior is, right? And elevating them and empowering them, too. That's wonderful. Yeah. What else? What other ideas to share out with the good for the group? Yeah, catch them being good, right? Yeah. And even monitoring, wow, how many times do I call out that name in a negative way? versus how many times a positive, right? They say in the teaching pyramid it should be an average of like 6 positive reinforcements to 1 negative, right? Class Dojo is another one. That one's an online application, I believe, right? With lots of dings, so you have to be careful with the sound sometimes. Oh, thank you. You're my tech person. Turn the what off? Oh, the sound's off, yeah. I thought you meant the mic. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, sure. Oh, yeah. Thank you, yeah. Yeah, you can turn those sounds off on Dojo, yeah, definitely. And it's nice because the parents can log in and see how the children are doing. What else? What other tips or something that we saw in the photos that we'd want to try in our own classroom? Go Noodle app, yeah. Nice. Yeah. That's great. So, yeah, teaching the kids to be mindful and reset, like you said, at the end of a busy activity or something, that can really help. There's also like some friendly videos on YouTube if you have access to that sometimes for the meditation, right, or the deep breathing. Brain breaks is another one. That's great. Any others? Yeah, please. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have to earn it. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What are some sensory bins that you guys have seen or used in your own classroom that you'd suggest for the group? I've seen the kinetic sand, which is great. There's colorful kinetic sand. Oh, those water beads, yeah. Oh. I've seen like seashells, like a bunch of like little seashells possibly. That's another component. Donors Choose can kind of, if you can sell it enough, Donors Choose, that's one I think, especially if you, oh, you're not allowed, wow. Okay, sorry. But that's a possibility, donorschoose.org, where you can submit projects. I've also seen where you can, I'm not sure how you do it, but the personal sensory bin, right? So it's a smaller bin, which is great, because then you can just take them out, stack them up. Yes, yeah, yeah. What other tips for the room that we'd say? Something? Yes, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the stuffed animals, that squishiness, right, that they might crave, starting it off at the beginning of the day. Yes. Yeah, what a gift you've given him, because, I mean, he needs to do it somewhere, and it's like, great, have fun. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Spaghetti noodles she gave him, and he would break them apart, yeah.
Expanding on that one, I've got a kid that he likes that too, but I like having broken strands in my room that makes him hold it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a box of unbroken strands, and I have a kid who just likes to go through, snap them all, and chew them all for me.
That's great, and you're giving him that special job, right? So he feels special, right? And again, it's teaching those kids to recognize what they need, right? And giving them the tools that they can to then participate in a way that is going to make them be successful, right? Yes. So setting a special place for them to take out that break. And I think that's been a huge shift in education in the past decade, right? Is that timeout corner is not punishment necessarily. It's like, okay, you need a timeout. We all need it. Adults need it, right? We need to take that break. And let's figure out what tools will help you so that you can pause and reset. Yeah. Please.
Something I've seen in classrooms is just handprints on the wall so the children can go and push against it and get some of that energy out. And also allowing the children who might be frustrated or angry to go to the recycle bin and just tear all that paper up.
And with the push one, I worked with the teacher, and she had the actual student who needed that sensory input. He did it. He made it, right? So that's another way, again, to empower those kids. Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Yoga. Yep, definitely. Yeah, there's a whole yoga to go along with brown bear. Great. Yoga in the classroom? Great. Yoga in the classroom has a grant, and they're having a conference soon, but they have concrete cards that they can use. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Oh. So the chapstick scented, rub it on their hand. They can smell that. We might have to do that for conferences. Okay. Yes.
This is what you're using for this
Right.
child.
Definitely, to communicate so that we're all on the same page. For sure. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I know. Well, thank God you could text it to her. Just say, please. Right. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move into our reflection piece. We hope that you guys got some good ideas from one another. And now what we're going to do is reflect. I don't know why that isn't moving. Maybe it's just taking a moment. But what we're going to do is reflect. And at your tables, we'll have a discussion at your tables. And there's 3 prompts that should be showing up in a minute that you can think about. And you'll just share whatever that prompt, the one you want to try. Oh, it's saying the connection is messed up. What? So you know what? Let me think about this. I lost the connection. That's what it is, I think. So we can't move forward. I'll fix that in a minute. But the prompts are really just thinking about one insight you might have about resilience that you want to share now, or a question that you still have that you're thinking of as a result of this, or kind of one next step. Okay? So one insight you'll share, or a question you have now about resilience, or a next step. And what we'll do is we'll have this discussion at each of the tables and just take a turn going around and sharing that idea. Okay? We'll have about 10 minutes to do that table discussion. All right, so before we close, let's just take 3 people who are willing to share what their next step would be as a result of this session for building resilience. We could have 3 brave souls to share out. What are they going to try out? The more you say it out loud, the more it'll be sure to happen. Okay, I'm going to bring the mic over to you.
I just need to remember to take that deep breath. And I also am going to try that box where, that calm down box.
Okay.
I really liked your technique with the turning around. I think I'm going to try that one.
Modeling, right? Taking that breathing break. Or the countdown break, I guess. One more. Thank you.
I really liked that poster where it had different ways to be safe, and it was really celebrating what the kids were doing. So I think I'm going to try taking pictures of my kids, catching them doing right and putting it up and celebrating with them.
Catch them being good. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us for this morning session. And we also have a post-PD challenge. So this is kind of a way to take away our learning. For 1 week, you can document the experiences that trigger you. And as you document, you could write a brief reflection after each experience. What triggered you? Why did it trigger you? And were you able to pause in that space between? So if you were, what did you do to enable this pause? And how did it influence your response? And if you weren't, why not? What could you have maybe done differently? And then you can reflect. What insights did you gain about yourself? What strategies helped you? And what's next? And we encourage you to reach out to friends, to colleagues, to coaches if you have them. Just develop a support network, because this is always ongoing work, and it's important to just continue this discussion that we began here today. So thank you again. You will have a PDF of this whole presentation, so you can access that, I think, through the TK website. And I'm not going to, oh, I see, yeah, okay. And then we have a survey that was emailed to you, I think, while you were in this session today. So if you could stay here a minute and just go ahead and complete that survey, we'd really appreciate it. And lunch, I believe, is from 12 to 1, and the next sessions begin at 1 p.m. All right, so thanks again for coming today.